In this video, we will deep dive into backfilling, as you will use this mechanism frequently. Let's begin by defining what a backfill is. Well, backfilling is the process of running a DAG or a specific task within a DAG for previous days. For instance, if a DAG has been running since the beginning of the month and a new task has been added to it, this new task, well, you might want to execute it for the previous days as well. And for that, you need to backfill it. The next question is, when do you need to backfill a DAG or a task? First, you may need to backfill a DAG when you have created a new DAG and want to run it for past intervals. This is pretty classic. Another reason is when a DAG or task within a DAG has failed and you want to rerun it for the failed intervals. This is pretty common, unfortunately. Also, if you have modified an existing DAG and want to apply those changes to past runs, you need to backfill your DAG. For example, when adding a new task or changing dependencies and so on. The last reason is when you want to rerun a specific task or a subset of tasks for a particular range of dates. Sometimes it is better optimized to rerun a specific task or a subset of tasks instead of all tasks when you backfill a DAG. In order to backfill a task or DAG in Airflow, you won't use the user interface. Instead, you will use the CLI with the following command. This command is the backfill command, and I strongly recommend you to take a look at it in the Airflow documentation, as you can see here, because there are so many options you can use that will be useful for you depending on your use cases and how you want to backfill your tasks or DAGs. Don't worry, we will see that more in the video. Alright, let's start with a simple example to illustrate how to backfill a DAG or task in Airflow. In order to illustrate the backfill mechanism, we need to have some DAG runs and task instances. So for that, we just need to change the catch-up parameter to true. And since the start date is in the past to this day, Airflow will catch up all the non-triggered DAG runs between the start date and the day at which we unpause the data pipeline. So let's do that. Save the file and go back to the user interface. Then we can turn on the toggle of this pipeline and refresh the page. You can see that now we have a couple of DAG runs and task instances. Let's refresh again. All right, and now let's pause the DAG. Okay, let's begin with the first use case where we have a new DAG, retail, that we want to run for past intervals. Indeed, if you take a look at the code, you can see that the start date is January 1st, 2024. So what if we want to run this pipeline prior to the start date? This is where you need to use the Airflow DAGs backfill command. Let's say we want to run it from December 1st, 2023. As you can see here, if you click on this DAG run, it was triggered on January 1st, 2024. So we want to run 1 month prior to this date. Let's go to the terminal. And here, as we use the Astro CLI, we can just type astro dev bash in order to access the Airflow CLI. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay up to date with Airflow, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. Then, to backfill the DAG from December 1st, 2023 to January 1st, 2024, we type airflow DAGs backfill with -s for the start date, 2023 12/01, and the end date, which is 2024 01/01, so January 1st, 2024. And finally, we specify the DAG ID, the unique identifier of the pipeline, which is retail. And just like that, if you hit enter and wait a little bit, Airflow is backfilling the retail DAG until January 1st, 2024. And in fact, if we wait a little bit longer, you can see that the backfilling process has been successfully completed. Back to the UI, if you refresh the page, you will see a little icon in some of the DAG runs, and this icon indicates that this DAG run was executed in the context of a backfill job. And that's what you can see here, run type backfill. If we change the date here to December 1st, 2023, we can see those DAG runs as shown right here. Another important thing to keep in mind is that we have been able to backfill the DAG even if it was paused on the user interface. So keep in mind you don't have to unpause your DAG if you want to backfill it. All right, now let's move on to the second use case where we have failed DAG runs or task instances and we want to rerun them. To illustrate this use case, we need to make the task start fails. And for that, we can raise an exception in the task after the print. Let's say raise value error with a message. And now let's go back to the UI, DAGs, and unpause the retail DAG. Then refresh the page. And now we have additional DAG runs. And you can see that they are all failing as we raise this exception. So let's pause the DAG again. I think we have enough DAG runs now. The next step is to find the interval for which you want to backfill your DAG. And for that, you have two options. The first one is to go to Browse, then DAG runs, and search on the DAG ID retail, so your DAG. And then you just scroll down until you see when the DAG started to fail. And you can see that it was on January 25th, 2024. So now we have the start date. We can look at the end date, which is February 5th, 2024. If you have for a DAG multiple DAG runs every day, then this is the option I recommend you to use. But if you have one DAG run for a DAG every day, instead you can use the second option, which is by using the calendar view. So here you click on calendar, and just by looking at the days, you see that the DAG started to fail on January 25th, 2024, and it stopped on February 5th, 2024. So we have our interval, we are ready to backfill the DAG. In the terminal, type Airflow DAGs backfill -s 2024-0125 -e 2024-0205 and the DAG ID retail. So let's wait a little bit. And as you can see, we are getting a lot of errors. So what's going on here? As we are still raising the exception in the task start, well, obviously it keeps failing. And that's what you can see here. For every task instance, we have a failure. That being said, on the right, there is one column that it is very interesting, try number. So what is try number? A task has an internal setting called the try number. And each time a task runs to completion, this number increases regardless of the state of the task. So it can be success or failed. It does not matter. However, if the task fails, most of the time you will rerun it. So let's say you rerun this task, well, the try number increases as well. And then the task fails again, so you rerun it, and again, try number increases. But what is the limit of try number? Well, this is defined by a parameter that you can define, which is retries. So let's say you have a task that you want to retry up to 3 times before having the state failed. You can set retries to the task 3, and ultimately Airflow will try the task 3 times before marking it as failed. With that in mind, what's the point with the backfill command? Well, if we go back to the terminal, the current try number is 7. For you, it might be different. But the point is, if we run the command backfill again, you can see that the try number hasn't changed. And in fact, if we define a retries parameter, so let's say retries equals to 9, something greater than the try number that we have here, and run the command again, we are still getting the same try number. So what you have to remember here is that by default, if you are backfilling tasks that have failed, the backfill command won't rerun those tasks automatically. In order to rerun those tasks automatically, you have to use an option which is --rerun failed tasks. And if you try again, now you have the try number to 8. But something is a little bit weird here, right? I mean, if we set retries to, let's say, 15, okay, so we want to retry this task 15 times before getting it in failure, and we run backfill again, you can see that Backfill tries to rerun the task only once and that's it. So why not 15 times? Because the DAG runs where the tasks are in failure as well. So that's what you can see here. Every DAG run has failed, and so the tasks. If you want to respect the retries number with the backfill command, then you have to reset the DAG runs as well. And to reset the DAG runs, okay, so to rerun not only the tasks but also the DAG runs so that you can respect the retries, you need to add the option -- reset DAG runs. And if you try and then you confirm, so you can see that all of those DAG runs will be reset. Now the backfill will retry the tasks as defined by the retries parameter. And that's what you can see here. You see, backfill is waiting for the task to run again. And in fact, you can verify that in the UI. So if you refresh the page, you see the DAG runs are running and the tasks are up for retry. Even in the CLI, you have tasks waiting 12. So you can see that 12 tasks are waiting to be executed. This is great as the backfill mechanism will retry your tasks automatically until it reaches the number of retries. However, that comes at the cost of slowing down dramatically the process of backfilling your DAG. So what if you actually don't want to retry your tasks automatically when you backfill a DAG? Well, you have another option, which is -- disable retry. And in that way, if a task fails, then it fails. That's it. You won't retry the task as many times as defined in the retries number, and you will save a lot of time. Usually when you backfill a DAG, you should not have failures. Let's remove the exception and run the command. And it's done. Perfect. If we take a look at the UI, then refresh the page, we have all the DAG runs that have been backfilled as expected, and you can see that with the little icon again. There is one option that I didn't mention yet because I don't think you will use it honestly, which is -- continue on failures. If set, the backfill will keep going even if tasks failed. So if you don't care about your tasks failing, well, that's the option to use. Let's talk a little bit about performances and optimizations. So when you backfill a DAG, by default, it starts from the oldest to the newest DAG run. And most of the time, this is what you want, but what if you want the opposite? What if you want to start from the newest DAG run, the latest one, to the oldest? Well, this is something that you can do with another option, which is run backwards. That's a good option if you want to start with the most recent DAG runs. However, if you use this option to speed up the process of backfilling your DAG so that it can continue to run for the next days, that's not the best option. Let me show you what you should do instead. Back to the DAG, let's say we want to backfill it for December. So for that, we have the backfill command. We are just going to change the start date. So 2023, like that, until 2023, 12/30. Okay, and don't forget to reset the DAG runs because otherwise the backfill won't rerun those DAG runs as they have been successfully executed. So it's very important that you use this option. Okay, now we want to simulate a long running task, and for that we can use sleep, and we want to sleep for 5 minutes. And don't forget to import that function at the top. So let me show you what happens if you backfill this DAG. Okay, perfect. Now if we go back to the Airflow UI, we have 16 running DAG runs. The question is, why 16? Well, because by default, you cannot have more than 16 DAG runs for a specific DAG running at the same time. This is defined in the Airflow configuration file with max active runs per DAG, or you can define it at the DAG level with max active runs. If you are backfilling a DAG and you have 16 DAG runs, that means you won't be able to run your DAG for the current day or the next days, and so you will miss those DAG runs. This is not what you want. You still want to keep running your DAG as usual while being able to backfill the previous DAG runs. And the question is, how can you do that? To do that, you need to clone your DAG. So let's go back to the code editor and let's interrupt this process for now. Then in the DAGs directory, click on your DAG, retail, then copy it and paste it in the same directory. Let's rename it with retail backfill. And we can use the same name for the DAG ID. So retail backfill. Okay, so we just have cloned the DAG, but with a different DAG ID. So save it, and let's go back to the Airflow UI. We can delete the running DAG runs because we have interrupted the backfilling process, so that's why you might have some running DAG runs stuck. So let's go back to DAG runs, then we select all running DAG runs, so filter on state and running. Then search for them, select all of them, and we can just click on actions and, or let's say, set to success. We also have some ones in queued. Again, let's go back to DAG runs, search for those DAG runs with queued. We select all of them, actions, and success. All right. Okay. So now what we want is to backfill the DAG, so retail, for December, exactly as we did previously, while keeping the other one, retail, running as usual. So let's turn on the toggle of retail. And we have some DAG runs running. Okay, so 16, like before. But now we want to use retail backfill. And for that, you go back to the code editor. You use the same command as before, but with retail backfill. And again, you want to run this DAG for December. So hit enter and let's wait a little bit. Let's go back to the Airflow UI. And so you see we have 16 DAG runs running for retail. So we should not be able to run any other tasks. However, if you refresh the page, you can see that with retail backfill, we are able to keep backfilling retail for December. That's what you can see on the calendar, while having retail running as usual. And that's how you should backfill your DAGs. So keep in mind, if you want to backfill a DAG, clone it first, then use that clone to backfill the DAG so that you can keep the other one running and you won't miss any days. This is great, but there is one detail that you need to take care of. Those two DAGs use the same pool. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go to admin and pools, there is a default pool. And that default pool is used by all of your DAGs whenever a task is running. So you see, by default, you can run up to 128 tasks at the same time. And right now you have 32 tasks running. So what does that mean for you? It means that if the DAG you use to backfill is taking up all the slots available in the pool, the actual DAG won't be able to execute other tasks because the pool is full. And so you will be back to the previous example where your DAG is stuck, waiting for the backfill to complete. So to avoid that, you need to create a dedicated pool for the backfilling process. Go to admin, then pools, create a new pool. Let's call it retail backfill and 128 slots. Then click on save. And we have retail backfill, okay? So now we have this, we can go back to the code editor, and in the terminal we add the option pool, with the pool retail backfill, and obviously we change the DAG ID for the backfill, which is retail backfill. Let's run the command. Okay, we reset the DAG runs. And if we scroll up a little bit, we can see that the backfill used the new pool retail backfill. In fact, if you go back to the UI, you see that retail backfill has 16 tasks running, whereas the default pool has 2 tasks running. And by doing that, we ensure that the retail DAG keeps running as usual while being able to backfill the previous DAG runs using the clone DAG. Okay, so far we have improved the backfill process quite a lot. However, we are not truly impacting the resources, right? Even if we create a pool or clone a DAG, they are still sharing the same resources, regardless if you backfill or not. So how can you make sure that the DAGs you use to backfill have their own resources so that they don't impact your other DAGs? Well, you have 3 options. And by the way, this section is for most advanced users. So the first one is by using the option local. That means the backfill will run using the local executor. So the backfill process will run on a single machine, a single computer, and that means you must have enough resources to handle that on a single machine. So that might be convenient, but not that much if you have heavy computing tasks. So what are the 2 other options? Well, if you use the Kubernetes executor to run your tasks on Kubernetes in pods, then you can specify an amount of resources for a Kubernetes worker pod so that your tasks won't go over the limits that you define. And that's what you can see here with the backfill requirements. We define the amount of resources that we request and what are the limits. And then we use this requirement in the default args of the DAG, so the requirements are applied to every task. And now, if you don't use the Kubernetes executor, but instead the Celery executor, then you can create a queue to send your backfill tasks to a specific machine, computer, with some resources, so that they won't impact the other tasks. So that's it about backfill. There are other things to say about it. For example, you have this option that might be useful if you want to backfill multiple DAGs based on a pattern in their DAG IDs. For example, you have, I don't know, a team and you use the name of the team as a prefix of the DAGs, then you can use that prefix, so the name of the team, with this option in order to backfill all the DAGs for a specific team. So this is very useful. You can do the same for the tasks as well. And last but not least, you have conf at the top, which might be useful if you want to pass some configuration settings to your DAG runs when you backfill a DAG. That's it for this video. I see you for the next one.